Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. How are you? Where are you? And how's life? I hope you're doing well, and welcome back to the podcast if you are a returning listener, and if you are discovering this podcast for the first time, welcome. I'm Lewis, I'm English, and every Friday I post a new podcast episode, usually with lots of conversations, slang, phrasal verbs, idioms, and so on. And for this week's podcast, I thought I'd do something a little bit different, but in my opinion, quite special, because yesterday I was finishing a new free product, and it is 10 English short stories to help you improve your idioms, colloquial language, phrasal verbs, and, just get you into the habit of reading in English. But I thought, well, I could do more than that. Because I've told you before on this channel that a fantastic practice is to read and listen to the audiobook at the same time. Now, I'm not going to create a full audiobook just yet, but I thought, I've got a podcast, so I could read these short stories out loud so you can download the document and read and listen at the same time. So that being said, if you go to the video description right now, there is a link. And if you click on that link, you can download this completely free PDF. And the PDF is about 40 pages long, and it contains 10 short stories in English. Each story is around 4 pages long. It's not too long, but it's not too short either. And every story is about a completely different topic. So, I want you to download it, and I want you to read as you are listening. Of course, you don't have to read it right now. You can just listen if you prefer. But in today's podcast, I'm going to read the first 5 short stories. And if you like this kind of podcast, well, I could continue and read the other 5 short stories in next week's episode. How does that sound? Do we have an agreement? Shall we kick off? Shall we get the ball rolling and get this show on the road? If you have said yes, thank you. If you have said no, well, tough. That's what I'm going to do anyway. But because I'm going to be reading, and I'm not really a narrator, it's not what I do, and I don't read that often. So if I make any mistakes when reading, please forgive me. And I'm going to hydrate before I start reading with a glass of water. Still water, of course, because I don't like fizzy water or sparkling water. For me, it just tastes weird. So still water is much better. And this one actually is tap water, to be honest. Hey, cheers to that. So now I'm going to share my screen. So then you can always watch the stories whilst you are listening to me reading them out loud. And this is it. 10 short stories to learn English. So as I scroll down, you're going to see the first story. And the title is The Lost Wallet. Are you ready? Shall we get started? Let's do it. The Lost Wallet. It was a typical grey Tuesday afternoon in the town of Ashbrook. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional bark of a dog or the rustle of leaves blowing across the pavement. Jamie had just finished school and was dragging his feet on the way home. Not because he was tired, but because he didn't want to go back to an empty house. As he passed the local park, something on the bench caught his eye. It was small, black, and slightly worn. He stopped, took a step back, and looked again. It was a wallet. Jamie looked around. No one was nearby. He picked it up and opened it cautiously. Inside were a few banknotes, a couple of receipts, a loyalty card from the corner shop, and an ID card with the name Martin Cooper. Jamie's heart skipped a beat. There was at least £60 in there, enough to buy that new video game he'd been dreaming of for weeks. But he hesitated. He knew what his mum would say. Do the right thing, even when no one's watching. He sighed and put the wallet in his pocket. Back home, Jamie put the wallet on the kitchen table and stared at it while eating his toast. He picked up his phone and considered calling the number on the ID. But what if it was a scam? What if someone pretended it was theirs just to get the money? He paced back and forth, then finally decided to talk to his mum. She always knew what to do. When she got home from work, Jamie greeted her at the door. "Mum, I found something," he said. "You're not going to believe it." She raised an eyebrow. "You haven't got into trouble, have you?" "No. Well, not really." He handed her the wallet. After looking inside, she nodded approvingly. "You did the right thing, love. Let's find this Martin Cooper." The next morning, they called the number on the ID. A man answered, sounding a bit out of breath. "Hello? Hi, is this Martin Cooper?" Jamie asked nervously. "Yes, speaking." "I think I found your wallet." There was a long pause. "You found my wallet? Oh my God, that's amazing. I've been tearing my hair out trying to remember where I left it." Jamie and his mum arranged to meet Martin that afternoon at the park bench where the wallet had been found. At 4 p.m., Jamie stood waiting by the bench. He felt nervous, like he was meeting a celebrity. A tall man in a navy coat approached with a warm smile. "You must be Jamie. I'm Martin," he said, holding out his hand. Jamie shook it. "I can't thank you enough. Honestly, I thought it was gone forever." Jamie handed over the wallet. Martin opened it, counted the money quickly, then looked up. "Everything's still here. You're a good lad." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a £20 note. "Here, take this as a thank you." Jamie hesitated. I don't know." Martin smiled. "Go on. You earned it fair and square. It's not every day you meet an honest teenager." Jamie took the note, a little red in the face. "Thanks," he said quietly. As Martin walked away, Jamie felt lighter than he had all week. He had done the right thing, and the £20 felt better than if he had kept all £60. He had a clear conscience, and something about that made the air feel fresher. Whoop whoop! That is the first story, the lost wallet, where Jamie did the right thing. He picked up a lost wallet. After deliberating and considering what to do, he finally gave the wallet back to Martin, the owner, and he got his reward. He was honest, and he received £20 for his, I guess, good moral decision, So that is the first story. Now, let's move on to story number 2. The title of the story is a delivery driver. And it's all about a day in the life of, well, a delivery driver. Are you ready? Shall we read it? Let's do it. A delivery driver. Callum's alarm went off at the crack of dawn. He groaned, slammed the snooze button, and rolled over. But there was no time to waste. He had 48 deliveries to make and a long day ahead. He threw on his uniform, grabbed a slice of toast, and dashed out the door. His van was already packed, and the delivery list was on his dashboard. The sat-nav beeped to life, and Callum set off in his usual route through the busy streets of Manchester. At 8:30, he was deep into the morning rush. Traffic was a nightmare, as usual. Cars crawled along the road, and impatient drivers honked their horns every few seconds. "Come on," Callum muttered, tapping the steering wheel. He was already running late. His first stop was a tiny cafe tucked down a narrow alleyway. He parked, grabbed the parcel, and rang the bell. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. "Seriously?" he sighed. "You've got to be kidding me." Just as he was about to leave a note, the door creaked open. "Oh, sorry, love," said a frazzled woman with flour on her hands. "I was up to my elbows in dough." Callum smiled. "No worries. Just sign here." By mid-morning, he was starting to get into the groove. Parcel after parcel, he scanned, handed them over, and hit the road again. Some customers were polite, some barely grunted. One even gave him a cup of tea and a biscuit. He took a sip. "You're a lifesaver," he said gratefully. But then things took a turn. His van suddenly started making a strange noise, a kind of wheezy rattle, then a bang, then silence. Callum pulled over and tried restarting it. Nothing. He got out and opened the bonnet. Smoke drifted out slowly. "Oh, brilliant," he muttered. "Just what I needed." He rang his manager. "Van's broken down," he said. "I'm stuck on Elmwood Road." There was a pause. "We'll send someone out, but it might take a while." Callum sighed. "Great." He looked at the clock. Time was slipping through his fingers. An hour later, the mechanic arrived, had a look, and nodded. "Fan belt's gone. I can patch it up for now, but you'll need to bring it in tomorrow." "Just get me back on the road," Callum said. By the time he was driving again, it was after 1 p.m., and he still had 30 deliveries to go. He stopped for lunch, a soggy sandwich eaten in the van. He scrolled through his messages, one from his mum, asking if he'd be coming for dinner. He typed back, "Maybe, if I don't work till midnight." Then a delivery to an office building. 5 floors, no lift. Of course. He lugged the boxes up, sweating and out of breath by the time he got to the top. A woman in heels looked at him over her glasses. "You're late." Callum smiled weakly. "Sorry, love. Busy day." She signed the form without another word. By 4 p.m., the sun had come out, and Callum was back in the swing of things. He started chatting with an old lady at the doorstep about the weather and a cat. She insisted he take a piece of banana bread for the road. Just when things were looking up, it started to rain, then pour down. Callum sprinted to the next house, trying to keep the parcel dry under his jacket. He rang the bell and waited. Nothing. He knocked again. Still no one. Then a kid opened the door. "Mum says leave it in the porch." Callum nodded and set it down. As he turned to leave, he slipped on the wet steps and nearly fell. "What a day," he muttered. His last delivery was in a quiet cul-de-sac. A little boy opened the door, eyes wide. "Is that for me?" Callum checked the label. "Are you Freddy?" The boy nodded eagerly. "Then yes, it is." The boy took the package and beamed. "It's my birthday!" Callum smiled. "Happy birthday, Freddy." The boy's mum appeared behind him. "Thank you. You've made his day." As Callum walked back to his van, tired and drenched, he smiled to himself. It was moments like that that made it worth it. By the time he got home, it was almost 7. He kicked off his boots, collapsed onto the sofa, and closed his eyes. Another day, another 100 miles. He hadn't made it to his mum's, and his dinner was cold toast. But at least he'd made every delivery. He picked up his phone and texted her. "Sorry I missed dinner. Tell Dad I'll pop in tomorrow." Woo woo woo! Okay, there is the second short story, and it was all about the life of a delivery man. And it seems like he's a very patient delivery man, because I was reading it and thinking, oh wow, if that was me, I'd be fed up. If people are ungrateful, I'm stuck in traffic, and then I get soaked, I was drenched. It doesn't sound fun. Not at all. So, a round of applause to the delivery driver. And so far, let me know, if you're still here, watching or listening, which story did you like most? 1 or 2? And now, we're going to get started with story number 3. And the title is The Mysterious Message. So let's begin. The Mysterious Message. It all started on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Ruby and her best mate, Dylan, were killing time in the school library, flipping through magazines and doodling in the margins of their notebooks. They were both bored out of their minds. Just as Ruby was about to suggest heading home, something caught her eye. A folded piece of paper tucked between the pages of an old history book. It was yellowed at the edges and looked like it had been there for ages. "What's that?" Dylan asked, leaning over. Ruby opened it carefully. It wasn't homework. It wasn't a love letter. It was a riddle. To find the key, start where stories sleep. Clues lie hidden, buried deep. Beneath the oak, where shadows fall, the truth awaits. Just heed the call. They stared at each other. "This is some kind of treasure hunt," Dylan said, grinning. "Or a prank," Ruby replied. "But I'm game if you are." Their first clue pointed them to the oak tree behind the school. It was massive, older than the school building itself. The kind of tree that looked like it had secrets. They raced outside, soaked to the bone within minutes thanks to the rain. But they didn't care. This was exciting. Beneath the oak where shadows fall, Ruby muttered, crouching down and brushing away wet leaves. "Look!" Dylan pointed to something sticking out of the mud. A small glass jar with another note inside. Ruby twisted the lid off. The second riddle read, "To reach the next, go where trains once ran. Beneath the bridge, past the rusted can." "That's the old railway path," Dylan said. "It's just 10 minutes from here." They sprinted down the road, shoes squelching with each step. When they reached the bridge, they looked under it, careful not to trip over old bike frames and junk. "I see it!" Ruby shouted. Another jar, this one tucked behind a rusted coffee tin. Inside was a third note. "The final clue is close to home, where lonely hearts once wrote their poem. The red phone box holds what you seek, but only those who dare may peek." "The phone box," Dylan said, eyebrows raised. "That must be the one near your grand's house. No one uses it anymore." Ruby nodded, her heart pounding. This is getting weird. They made their way to the phone box, which stood forgotten on a quiet corner. Paint was peeling, and the door creaked as Ruby opened it. Inside, taped to the wall, was a small brown envelope. Dylan pulled it down. "This better not be a jump scare." Ruby opened it and gasped. Inside was a key, a Polaroid photo of the library, and a note that simply read, "You followed the trail. Now find the door. The past is locked, but not for sure." Back at school, they scoured the library, key in hand. At the back, behind the fiction section, was a door they'd never noticed before. It looked like a supply cupboard, but the key fit perfectly in the lock. With a click, the door creaked open, revealing a dusty little room filled with old books, film reels, and boxes labeled with years. "This is like a time capsule," Dylan whispered. They started exploring and found an old student newspaper from 1989. On the front page was a photo of a teenage boy holding up a trophy with a headline, "Local hero saves library from closure." Ruby pointed at the boy. "He looks familiar." "It's Mr. Thompson," Dylan said. "The history teacher." They kept digging and uncovered more photos, letters, and even a journal. It turned out that Mr. Thompson had created the treasure hunt as a secret project with his best friend back in the 80s. But they'd lost touch and never finished it. The journal ended with a note. "If someone finds this one day, maybe they'll finish what we started. MT." The next day, Ruby and Dylan showed Mr. Thompson everything. At first, he looked confused. Then his face lit up with recognition. "I haven't thought about this in years," he said. "Me and my best mate, Neil, used to dream about making the ultimate treasure hunt. We hid the clues, but life got in the way. We drifted apart after uni." Ruby smiled. "Well, we found it. And we finished it." Mr. Thompson looked genuinely moved. "That's bloody brilliant." Word got around the school quickly, and suddenly, everyone wanted to try the hunt. Mr. Thompson, with Ruby and Dylan's help, decided to recreate it for the whole year group. Ruby never thought a boring day in the library would turn into something unforgettable. But now, every time she walked past the oak tree or the red phone box, she smiled. Because adventure was everywhere. You just had to pay attention. Yeah, yeah, yeah! That is the third story, The Mysterious Message. And did you like it? Did you find it interesting? I don't know if at school you did anything similar to this with treasure hunts and hiding notes and stuff like that. But imagine if you were one of these kids and you found this, and then you gave it to the teacher. For the teacher, he must have been like, "Oh my God, I completely forgot about that. Wow, That was 20 years ago. So it'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? And again, let me know, did you enjoy this story? And were there any words or phrases that you didn't quite understand? If so, let me know in the comments. And we're going to move on to story number 4, of course. And it is the Flatmate Fiasco. Are you ready? Let's do it. The Flatmate Fiasco. When Megan moved into her new flat in London, she thought she'd struck gold. It was a cozy 2-bedroom place in Zone 2, with decent rent and even a tiny balcony. The only catch? She had to share it with a stranger. That stranger was Olivia. At first, things were fine. Olivia seemed laid back, clean enough, and friendly. They even hit it off over tea the first evening, chatting about jobs, weekend plans, and dodgy landlords. But it didn't take long for things to go sideways. It started with little things. Olivia helped herself to Megan's oat milk. Then it was a shampoo. Then the Wi-Fi password somehow got shared with Olivia's mate, who just needed to send a few emails and ended up gaming in the living room for 3 hours. Megan tried to grin and bear it, thinking maybe she was just being too uptight. But one Thursday evening, she came home to find her favorite mug smashed, the bathroom covered in glitter, and Olivia singing at the top of her lungs in the shower. That was the last straw. She knocked on the bathroom door. "Liv, can we talk?" There was a pause. Then the shower turned off. Olivia opened the door, dripping wet, wrapped in a towel. "Everything okay?" "Not really," Megan said, trying to keep her cool. "Can you please stop using my stuff without asking? And maybe not throw parties on a weeknight?" Olivia blinked. "Whoa, where's this coming from?" Megan folded her arms. "It's been building up. I just need a bit of respect, that's all." Olivia looked offended. "Right, okay. Message received." But over the next few days, the atmosphere was tense. Olivia stopped talking to her. Passive-aggressive post-it notes appeared on the fridge. One read, "Please wash your dishes before they fossilize." That weekend, Megan invited her friend Lily over for a coffee. As they sat on the sofa, laughing about work, Olivia stormed in. "Oh, sorry. Didn't realize this was a cafe now." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Yikes! Trouble in paradise?" Megan rolled her eyes. "She's been giving me the cold shoulder all week." The tension in the flat was starting to get unbearable. Megan even considered moving out, but the thought of flat hunting in London again made her want to tear her hair out. One night, things came to a head. Megan came home to find Olivia had rearranged the furniture. The sofa was now facing the window. The rug was rolled up, and a plant had mysteriously vanished. "Where's my monstera?" Megan asked, stunned. Olivia shrugged. "It looked sad, so I gave it to my mum." "You what?" "She's really good with plants. Don't kick off." Megan was fuming. "That wasn't yours to give away." "I thought we shared everything around here," Olivia snapped. "Well, we don't," Megan shouted. And just like that, they had a full-blown row in the middle of the living room. Afterward, the silence was deafening. Neither of them spoke for 3 days. Then, on Tuesday evening, Megan came home to find a note on the table. It read, "Hey, I was a bit of a nightmare. I'm sorry. I'll replace the plant. Let's have a proper chat when you're free. Liv." Megan stared at it. Part of her wanted to stay angry. But the truth was, she hadn't exactly handled things perfectly either. That night, they sat down over a cuppa and talked it out. Turns out, Olivia had just broken up with her girlfriend, hated her job, and was feeling all over the place. Megan listened and nodded. I get it, but I need my space respected too. We're both grown-ups. Olivia smiled sheepishly. Agreed. Let's make a fresh start. And just like that, things began to smooth out. A few weeks later, they were laughing over pizza and Netflix. Back to being flatmates instead of rivals. They even made a chore rota. It wasn't perfect, but Megan realized something important. Sharing a flat wasn't just about rent. It was about compromise, communication, and occasionally losing a plant to someone's mum. Woo, woo, woo! Okay, that is the flatmate fiasco. The nightmarish occasion when you are sharing a flat with someone that you don't get on well with. This has certainly happened to me when I've been sharing flats previously with different people, and I had some bad flatmates, to say the least. But, there's not a lot you can do about it sometimes. You just have to bear it, put up with it, move on, and try to make it as peaceful as possible, I suppose. Now, I'm going to read short story number 5, and that's the last one I'm going to read. Then, next week, as I said, if you want me to read the remaining 5 short stories, let me know in the comments, and I will oblige. And don't forget that in the video description, there is a link so you can download this PDF for yourself, and you can read it whenever you want. That being said, the final story of today is called Last Minute Trip. Let's read it. Last Minute Trip. Jake had always been a creature of habit. Same job, same sandwich shop at lunch, same pub on Fridays. But on a dull Tuesday afternoon, everything changed with one text from his best friend, Theo. Mate, I've just won 2 tickets to Rome. We fly tomorrow. You in? Jake blinked at the message. At first, he thought Theo was taking the mick. But no, Theo never joked about travel. He was spontaneous to a fault, always jetting off somewhere on a whim. Jake hesitated. He had meetings, emails, laundry, but something inside him stirred. Maybe it was time to shake things up. He replied, Sod it. Let's go. The next morning was chaos. Jake had left it to the last minute to pack as usual. He shoved random clothes into his backpack, forgot his charger, and nearly missed the train to the airport. Theo, of course, was already there with a coffee in hand and a massive grin on his face. Cutting it close, aren't you? He said. Jake rolled his eyes. Don't start. They boarded the plane, and for the first time in ages, Jake felt like he could breathe. No deadlines, no stress, just the promise of pizza, sunshine, and a bit of adventure. When they landed in Rome, it was warm and buzzing with energy. Jake was blown away by the architecture, the narrow streets, the motorbikes weaving in and out of traffic. It was beautiful in a chaotic sort of way. Theo had booked a cheap little guest house near Trastevere. The room was tiny, but the view overlooked a cobbled alley with ivy-covered balconies. They dumped their bags, freshened up, and went exploring. Jake tried to act cool, but he was clearly out of his element. He tripped over cobblestones, got sunburned in the shade, and accidentally ordered a plate of raw artichokes, thinking it was a pasta dish. Theo was in stitches. "You're such a tourist," Jake laughed. "I'm trying, all right?" That night, they found a lively piazza where locals gathered with guitars, glasses of wine, and no apparent rush to be anywhere. Theo struck up a conversation with a group of students, and soon they were chatting away like old friends. Jake, usually shy around strangers, surprised himself by joining in. "See?" Theo nudged him. "You're coming out of your shell." Jake nodded. "Maybe I needed this more than I realized." The next few days were a blur of fountains, gelato, spontaneous snaps, and getting hopelessly lost. On purpose. On Saturday, Theo suggested they rent a scooter. Jake was nervous, but Theo insisted. "Live a little." They zoomed through Rome like locals. Well, almost. Jake nearly took out a fruit stand and got told off by an elderly woman who shouted at him in Italian. Theo was crying with laughter. "You're a menace," he yelled as they sped away. By Sunday, the trip was winding down. They sat by the river, watching the sun dip below the skyline. "I can't remember the last time I felt this free," Jake said. Theo handed him a beer. That's the beauty of a spur-of-the-moment trip. No plan, no pressure. Jake smiled. "Cheers to that." Back in London the next day, Jake walked into work looking sun-kissed and surprisingly cheerful. His manager raised an eyebrow. "All right, mate." Jake grinned. "Never better." Something had changed. Maybe not on the outside, but inside. Jake had turned a corner. He realized that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to get lost somewhere new. You! That is it. That is the 5th short story. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you enjoyed my reading as well. There were a couple of moments where I maybe mispronounced something, or I kind of hesitated, or stuttered, or stammered. But I think overall, I did a good job. Hopefully next time, I can do it even better, and maybe I can develop this as a second career. I could be a professional storyteller, or a professional narrator. The possibilities are endless. I'm just kidding. But I thought it'd be interesting to try out this new style of podcast. Of course, I'm not going to be doing this all of the time, but given that I made this PDF of 10 short stories, I thought it would be useful for you to be able to listen to the stories and not only read them. Because, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, an amazing tip to improve your English is to read books and listen to the audiobook at the same time. So, thank you so much for watching or listening. You can probably hear some sirens in the distance. Sorry about that. These are the downsides of living in the city and being close to the city centre. One day, if I live in the middle of nowhere, I hope to have no background noise going on when I'm in the middle of recording. It is what it is. What are you going to do? But thanks once again. Don't forget to download the document, and I'll see you next week for maybe another 5 short stories. Enjoy your reading, and see you next time. Bye-bye!